For like forever, we've known that kids inherit traits from their parents. But how does that actually work? What's the rule book for everything from your eye color to how tall you get? Well, today, we're going to crack the code of life itself.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Why do you have your mom's eyes or your dad's nose? It's not just a coincidence, right? There's got to be some kind of instruction manual at play. And it turns out, there is.
So, for centuries, the best guess people had was that it was basically like mixing paint. You know, a tall parent and a short parent should have a medium-sized kid. Simple. And yeah, it kind of makes sense on the surface. But that theory totally falls apart when you think about it. How could a trait like red hair just disappear for a whole generation and then, bam, show up again in the grandkids? Blending can't explain that.
The real answer is actually way cooler. Traits don't get mixed up at all. They're passed down in these little, distinct packages of information. It's more like a blueprint, or maybe a recipe for building a living thing. And that whole recipe is written in our DNA. The science of understanding this blueprint, that's genetics.
And you'll never guess who first cracked this code. It wasn't some fancy scientist in a high-tech, futuristic lab. Nope, it was a monk in a garden. So meet Gregor Mendel. We're in the mid-1800s, and this Austrian monk has a side hustle as a biologist. He starts doing these absolutely brilliant experiments. And his lab? The garden, right there at the monastery. He was just obsessed with figuring out the secrets his plants were hiding.
But why pea plants, of all things? Well, they were kind of the perfect test subject. For one, they grow super fast. They also have a bunch of really obvious, easy-to-spot traits. Is the flower purple or white? Is the seed round or wrinkly? And, the best part, Mendel could totally control their pollination. He decided exactly which plants crossed with which, giving him complete control. It was genius.
Okay, so what did he actually do? This is where the story gets really, really good. Mendel sets up this experiment that, and I'm not exaggerating, is going to change science forever. All right, so check this out. He starts by taking a plant that only makes yellow peas and crosses it with one that only makes green peas. Now, if that old paint mixing idea were true, you'd expect some kind of murky yellowish-green pea, wouldn't you? But nope, that's not what happened. Every single one of the new seeds was yellow. It was like the green trait just vanished. Poof, gone. This was Mendel's first big aha moment. He realized that some traits must just be stronger or dominant. If that trait's instruction is there, it's the one you see. And that other trait, the one that went into hiding, he called that recessive.
So, this raises a huge question, right? Was the green trait gone for good, or was it just lurking in the shadows, waiting?
So Mendel takes those new yellow pea plants and lets them self-fertilize. And guess what? In the next generation, the green peas came back. But here is the mind-blowing part. It wasn't random at all. The guy literally counted thousands and thousands of peas and found a perfect, predictable pattern. For every 3 yellow peas, there was exactly 1 green pea, a 3-to-1 ratio. This wasn't just gardening anymore. This was data.
That perfect ratio could only mean one thing. Traits had to be controlled by a pair of what he called factors, one from each parent. Today, we have a more modern name for those factors, alleles. So for seed color, you've got the yellow allele and the green allele. They're just different flavors of the same gene.
And the specific combo of alleles an organism has, that's its genotype. You can think of it as the underlying code, the actual genetic recipe written down inside.
And what you actually see on the outside, the yellow pea or the green pea, that's the phenotype. So if the genotype is the recipe, the phenotype is the finished cake. It's the physical result you can actually look at.
So all this careful watching, and believe me, a ton of counting, led Mendel to lay down the fundamental laws of heredity. These are the rules of the game for how traits get passed on in, well, pretty much all living things.
And we can actually see how this works with a super simple tool called a Punnett square. Okay, so we'll use a big Y for that dominant yellow allele and a little y for the recessive green one. When you map out all the possible ways they can combine from those hybrid parents, look at that. 3 out of the 4 boxes have at least one big Y, so those peas are yellow. But that last box, it gets 2 little Ys, and that's our green pea, making its comeback. And there it is. That's the math that gets us right back to that perfect 3-to-1 ratio of what the peas actually looked like, the phenotypes that Mendel saw over and over in his garden. See, it wasn't magic, it was math.
Okay, so from all this, Mendel came up with 3 big laws.
The first one just puts a name on what we saw with the yellow and green peas. It's called the law of dominance.
And the rule is super simple. If you've got two different alleles for the same trait, the dominant one is always going to be the one you see. It basically covers up or masks the recessive one. That recessive allele is still there, hanging out in the background, but you just can't see it.
All right, law number 2. This one explains how these alleles even get passed on to the kids in the first place. It's the law of segregation.
All this means is that your two alleles for a trait get split up. So each parent only gives one of their two alleles to their offspring. And which one they pass on? Totally random. A 50-50 coin flip every single time.
Okay, but what about juggling multiple traits at once? Like, does having yellow peas mean you're more likely to have wrinkly peas? Mendel's third law tackles exactly that. It's the law of independent assortment.
Basically, the gene for one thing, like seed color, doesn't care about the gene for another thing, like seed shape. They're inherited completely independently of each other. That's why you can get every possible combination of traits. It's why having brown hair doesn't automatically mean you'll have brown eyes. They're separate deals.
So, okay, a monk playing with peas in a garden almost 200 years ago. It's a cool story, but why are we still talking about it? Why does it matter now?
Because Mendel's work is, and I mean this literally, the foundation for the entire field of genetics. And what's crazy is that when he published his findings, nobody cared. It was pretty much ignored for more than 30 years. But today, plant and animal breeders use his laws to make better crops and healthier livestock. Scientists use these exact same ideas to figure out the odds of inheriting genetic diseases. What he discovered in that garden explains the rules of life for all of us.
Mendel handed us the rule book for heredity. He cracked a code that had puzzled humanity for centuries, and he did it all with a humble pea plant. He opened the door, and now we can read our own blueprint. So the real question is, what's the next chapter? What other secrets are still hiding in our DNA, just waiting for us to find them?